Jake Morrison stood at the window of his small room and looked out at the strange world below. Everything here was made of crystalline metal that glowed with inner heat. The buildings rose high into the red sky and flames danced along their surfaces like living things. This was the Parathi homeworld, and it was unlike anything humans had ever seen before. He had been here for 3 days now, and the heat still bothered him. Even with the cooling suit under his uniform, sweat ran down his back. The Parathi loved heat. They needed it. Their bodies were made of it in a way. They could create fire from their own flesh and control it like humans controlled their hands. Jake was part of the security team that came with the human diplomatic mission. His job was simple: protect the human diplomats and make sure nothing bad happened during the peace talks. These talks were important. Humanity and the Parathi Empire had been enemies for nearly 20 years. Now finally, both sides wanted peace. Captain Lisa Grant led the human team. She was smart and calm, even when the Parathi guards glared at them with eyes that glowed like hot coals. The Parathi didn't trust humans. They thought humans were weak because they couldn't survive the heat. They called humans cold ones and said it like an insult. Jake adjusted his cooling unit and walked down the long corridor toward the throne room. The walls here were hot to the touch. Red and orange light pulsed through the crystal, making shadows dance. He passed several Parathi guards. They were tall, taller than most humans, with skin that looked like cooled lava, dark and cracked with lines of red fire showing through. They didn't speak to him. They just watched with those burning eyes. The throne room was massive. The ceiling stretched so high that Jake couldn't see the top through the heat haze. In the center, on a throne of black stone that glowed from within, sat Queen Ashkara. She was beautiful and terrible at the same time. Flames crowned her head like hair, and her eyes burned with intelligence and power. When she spoke, her voice crackled like a fire. "The cold ones wish to make promises," she said to her advisors. "But can cold ones keep their word? Fire is constant. Fire is strong. What are they?" Captain Grant stepped forward. She didn't show fear, though Jake knew the heat in this room must be painful for her. "We are people who learn from our mistakes, Your Majesty. We fought because we didn't understand each other. Now we want to understand." The Queen's flames flared brighter. "Pretty words. But I've heard pretty words before." A door opened to the side of the throne and someone new entered. Jake's breath caught. It was a young Parathi, smaller than the others, but her flames burned brighter. Blue-white fire danced around her shoulders and arms. She moved with grace and anger at the same time. "Mother," the young Parathi said, "why do we waste time with these cold ones? They cannot survive our world. They cannot understand our ways." "Velsha," the Queen said, her voice holding a warning. "You will show respect during these talks. Princess Velsha." Jake had heard about her. The report said she was the Queen's only daughter, and that she had a temper as hot as her flames. They called her the Burning Storm. Looking at her now, Jake understood why. The princess turned her burning eyes toward the human delegation. Her gaze swept over them and stopped on Jake. For a moment, their eyes met. Jake didn't look away. He had learned in his training that showing fear to predators only made things worse. The Parathi respected strength. Something flickered in the princess's expression. "Surprise, maybe?" Then her flames flared hotter and she looked away. "They stare like they have no manners," Velsha said. "Like animals trying to understand speech." "That's enough," Queen Ashkara commanded. "Go to your training. These talks do not concern you yet." The princess bowed, flames dimming slightly in submission to her mother. But as she turned to leave, Jake saw something in her posture. It wasn't just anger. There was tension there, like a wire pulled too tight. Over the next few days, Jake learned more about the palace and its rhythms. He was assigned to patrol the outer gardens where the temperature was slightly cooler. The Parathi kept these gardens for certain plants that couldn't survive the inner palace heat. Jake found he could breathe easier here. He often saw Princess Velsha training in a courtyard nearby. She practiced combat with weapons made of condensed flame. Her movements were fast and precise, but there was fury in every strike. She burned training dummies to ash. She melted metal targets into pools of liquid. The other Parathi watched her with respect and maybe a little fear. One afternoon, Jake watched as Velsha's instructor corrected her form. The princess's flames suddenly exploded outward in rage. Blue-white fire filled the courtyard. The instructor jumped back. Other guards moved away quickly. But Velsha stood alone in the center of her own inferno, and Jake could see something on her face that the others missed. It wasn't anger. It was pain. The flames died down as quickly as they had erupted. Velsha stood breathing hard, smoke rising from her shoulders. She looked around at the watching Pirathi, and her expression became a mask of pride and strength. She bowed to her instructor and continued training as if nothing had happened. But Jake had seen. Under all that fire, the princess was hurting. That evening, he mentioned it to Captain Grant during their briefing. "The princess seems unstable," he said carefully. Grant nodded. "The Pirathi value emotional control through expression. They believe in burning hot, not holding back. But I think Velsha might be burning too hot. I've been watching the Queen. She worries about her daughter. Should we be concerned?" Jake asked. "Just keep your eyes open," Grant replied. "These negotiations are delicate. If something happens to upset the balance, everything could fall apart." Jake didn't know it then, but those words would prove more important than he could imagine. 3 days later, Princess Velsha would disappear, and the fragile peace between their worlds would hang by a thread. But for now, Jake finished his patrol and returned to his hot, uncomfortable room. He looked out at the crystal city burning under the alien sky and wondered what it must be like to be made of fire, to carry that heat inside yourself every moment of every day. He wondered if fire could ever feel cold. The alarm woke Jake from a restless sleep. It wasn't a gentle sound. It was a shrieking wail that made his teeth hurt. Red lights flashed in his room and he could hear shouting in the corridors outside. He grabbed his uniform and was dressed in seconds. When he opened his door, chaos greeted him. Pirathi guards ran through the halls, their flames burning bright with agitation. The heat in the corridor had increased and Jake's cooling unit struggled to keep up. He found Captain Grant and the other human security officers gathering near their quarters. "What's happening?" Jake asked. "The princess is missing," Grant said, her face tight with concern. "She didn't appear for morning rituals." They searched her rooms and found them empty. No sign of struggle, no message. Just gone. A Pirathi guard captain approached them. His name was Kormal, and he had made it clear from day one that he didn't like humans. His flames burned angry orange as he spoke. "The palace is in lockdown," he said. "No one enters. No one leaves. The Queen demands it." "We understand," Grant said calmly. "How can we help?" Kormal's eyes flashed. "Help? You cold ones are the reason we search. Perhaps you took her. Perhaps this was your plan all along." "That's ridiculous," Grant replied, keeping her voice level. "We have no reason to harm the princess. We want peace, do you?" Kormal moved closer, and Jake could feel the heat rolling off him in waves. "Or do you want to weaken us? Take our princess and break our queen's spirit?" "We're not your enemies," Jake said, stepping forward. "We're here to help end the war, not start new problems." Kormal turned his burning gaze on Jake. For a moment, Jake thought the Pirathi might attack. Then another guard called out, and Kormal turned away, leaving without another word. Within an hour, all humans were summoned to the throne room. Jake had never seen Queen Ashkara like this. Her flames burned white-hot, so bright it hurt to look at her directly. The walls around her throne were blackened and cracking from the heat. Her rage filled the entire room like a physical force. "My daughter is gone," the Queen said, her voice like thunder. "Someone has taken her. Someone will pay." Captain Grant stood before the throne, somehow maintaining her composure despite the terrible heat. "Your Majesty, we swear we had nothing to do with this. Let us help you find her. We have skills that might be useful." "Skills?" The Queen's laugh was bitter. "What skills do cold ones have that my warriors lack?" "Different eyes see different things," Grant said. "We look at the world differently than you do. Maybe we'll notice something your guards missed." The Queen stared at them for a long moment. Finally, she nodded. "You may search, but know this. If I find that any of you had a part in my daughter's disappearance, I will burn your ship from the sky and every cold one on this planet with it." "Understood," Grant said. The search parties were organized. Jake found himself paired with Kormal. The Pirathi guard made his displeasure clear. "Stay out of my way, cold one," Kormal growled. "I will find the princess. You will just slow me down." They were assigned to search the lower palace gardens, the same areas where Jake had been patrolling. The gardens were beautiful even in the crisis, filled with plants that grew in extreme heat. Flowers with petals like flame bloomed along crystal paths. Trees with bark that glowed red provided shade that was still uncomfortably warm. Kormal moved through the gardens quickly, checking behind large plants and in small grottos. But he was looking for obvious hiding places. places where someone might be held against their will. Jake thought about what he had seen of the princess. She hadn't seemed like someone who would let herself be taken easily. Her flames were too strong, her spirit too fierce. What if she left on her own? Jake said. Cormal stopped and turned. What did you say? What if she wasn't taken? What if she left by herself? Impossible, Cormal said. A Pirathi princess does not run away. We are not cowards. I didn't say anything about cowardice, Jake replied. But I've seen her training. She looked stressed, angry. Maybe she needed space. You know nothing of our ways, Cormal said, but there was something in his voice. Uncertainty, maybe. Jake continued searching, but now he looked for different signs. Not evidence of a struggle, but evidence of someone trying to leave quietly. He examined the garden walls carefully. Most were smooth crystal, but here and there were decorative elements that could serve as handholds. Then he found it. A small scorch mark on one of the walls about halfway up. It was fresh, not more than a day old. The mark was at an odd height, as if someone had been climbing and lost control of their flames for just a moment. Look at this, Jake called to Cormal. The Pirathi guard examined the mark and frowned. A climbing mark. But why would the princess climb the wall? To get out without being seen, Jake said. If she left through the gates, guards would have stopped her or at least reported it. But if she climbed over, in the night when no one was watching carefully, she could get away. Cormal's flames flickered with thought. Even if you are right, this tells us nothing about where she went. No, Jake agreed. But it tells us something important. She left because she wanted to. She's hiding, not captured. They reported their findings to the search coordinators. Most of the Pirathi guards dismissed the theory. A princess wouldn't hide from her own people. It was unthinkable. But Jake noticed that some of the palace servants, the lower-ranked Pirathi who worked in the kitchens and cleaned the halls, exchanged meaningful looks. Later, when Cormal went to report to his superiors, Jake approached one of these servants. She was an older Pirathi woman whose flames burned low and steady. Excuse me, Jake said politely. I'm trying to find the princess. I think she might be in trouble. The servant looked at him warily. Why would I speak to a cold one about our princess? Because you care about her, Jake said simply. And I think you might have noticed things that the guards didn't. The servant was quiet for a moment. Then she spoke softly. The princess has been sad. Not angry, though she shows anger, sad. She spoke to me once in the kitchens. She said she felt like a flame trapped in a lantern. Beautiful to look at, but with no freedom. Did she say anything else? She asked me about the old parts of the palace. The places no one goes anymore. The cold rooms, Jake asked. Long ago, before the Great War, some of your people lived here, as guests for trade and learning. The palace had rooms built for them with cooling systems. When the war started, those rooms were sealed, forgotten. Jake's heart beat faster. Where are these rooms? The servant hesitated, then gave him directions. The eastern wing below the training grounds. But they have been locked for 20 years. Thank you, Jake said. He returned to the human quarters and found Captain Grant. He explained what he had learned. You think she's in the old human quarters? Grant asked. It makes sense, Jake said. If she wanted to get away, to be somewhere no one would think to look, somewhere she could cool down, both literally and figuratively, those rooms would be perfect, but they're locked. She's a princess, Jake said, and she can melt metal with her hands. I don't think locks would stop her. Grant considered this. If you're wrong and you waste time searching empty rooms while she's in real danger. I know, Jake said, but my gut tells me I'm right. Then follow your gut, Grant said, but be careful. If you find her and she's frightened, she might attack before she recognizes you. Jake nodded and headed toward the eastern wing. The corridors grew older as he walked, less maintained. The crystal walls were clouded with age, and the heat was somehow different here, less vibrant. Finally, he found a door marked with ancient human symbols. It had been locked once, but the lock was now a melted puddle of metal on the floor. He opened the door carefully. Beyond was darkness, and for the first time since arriving on this world, coolness. Real blessed coolness, Princess Velsha. He called softly into the dark. My name is Jake Morrison. I'm here to help. There was no answer. But somewhere in that darkness he heard breathing. Slow, labored breathing. He stepped inside. Jake's eyes adjusted slowly to the darkness. The rooms were old, built in a human style with straight walls and simple furniture. Everything was covered in dust, but the cooling system, ancient as it was, still worked. The air here was comfortable, almost cold compared to the rest of the palace. He found her in the third room. Princess Velsha lay on a stone bench that had been built for humans long ago. Her flames were so dim that Jake could barely see them. They flickered weakly around her shoulders and hands, barely brighter than candlelight. This was wrong. Her flames should burn bright and hot. Even in sleep, a healthy pyrethy glowed like a banked fire. Jake moved closer carefully. "Princess?" She didn't respond. He could see her chest rising and falling, but the movements were shallow. Her skin, usually cracked with lines of inner fire, looked dull and gray. He had heard about this condition. The diplomats had briefed them. Flame death, they called it. When a Parathi's internal fire burned too low, they could die. Jake knew he should call for help immediately. The Parathi guards would know what to do. They could bring heat, restore her flame, save her life. But something made him pause. If she had come here to hide, if she had deliberately sought out this cold place, calling the guards would mean betraying her trust. And right now she was dying. He made a decision. He quickly removed his cooling suit. Without it, the temperature in the old human quarters, which had felt cool before, now felt comfortable. He sat on the bench beside the princess and carefully, gently, lifted her so that she leaned against him. For a Parathi, human body temperature was cool. But for a dying Parathi, for one whose flames had burned too low, it was warmth. Not much, but enough. Jake felt the princess's body gradually absorb his heat. Her flames flickered slightly brighter. He waited. Minutes passed. Then an hour. Jake's arms grew tired from holding her, but he didn't move. He watched her flames slowly strengthen, going from barely visible to a soft, steady glow. Finally, her eyes opened. They were still dim, not the brilliant, burning gaze he had seen before, but they focused on him. Confusion showed on her face. "You," she said, her voice rough and quiet. "The human guard?" "My name is Jake," he said gently. "You're safe. Safe?" She tried to sit up, but she was too weak. She slumped back against him. "I am not safe. I will never be safe, and what do you mean?" She was quiet for a long time. Jake thought she might have fallen back into unconsciousness. Then she spoke again. "Do you know what it is like," she said, "to be made of fire but feel cold inside?" Jake didn't answer. He sensed she wasn't really asking him. "My whole life I have been told to burn bright. Be strong, show no weakness. A Parathi princess must be perfect. Her flames must never dim. Her courage must never falter. She must be a warrior, a leader, a symbol of strength." Velsha's voice cracked. "But I am tired. So tired of burning. So tired of being strong." "So you came here," Jake said. "I burned too hot for too long," she explained. "During training, during ceremonies, always pushing my flames hotter, brighter. I thought if I burned bright enough I would feel strong inside. But it only made me more tired, so I ran. I came here to these cold rooms and I let my flames die down. I just wanted to rest. To be cool for once. To not have to be perfect." "You're not resting," Jake said gently. "You're dying. Your flames are too low." "I know," she said, and there was something in her voice that scared him. Acceptance. "Maybe it is better this way." "No," Jake said firmly. "It's not better. Running away and dying doesn't solve anything. You do not understand. You are cold ones. You can show weakness. You can cry, can admit fear. My people see that as failure. If I return and tell them I fled because I was tired, because I could not handle the pressure, I will be shamed, stripped of my title. My mother will be disgraced. Or," Jake said, "maybe you'll teach them something important." Velsha turned her head to look at him. "What could I possibly teach them? That strength isn't about never falling down. It's about getting back up. That admitting you need help isn't weakness. It's wisdom. Your people believe this?" "We do now," Jake said. "We didn't always. There was a time when human warriors thought showing emotion was weak. We thought strength meant being hard, never bending. You know what happened? Those warriors broke. They broke inside where no one could see, and they destroyed themselves." He shifted slightly, making sure she stayed warm against him. "We learned that the strongest people are the ones who can say, 'I'm struggling and I need help.' Those words don't make you weak. They make you human. Or in your case, they make you real." "Real," Velsha repeated the word like she was tasting it. "You were burning yourself out trying to be perfect," Jake continued. "But perfection isn't strength. It's an illusion. Real strength is being able to be imperfect and keep going anyway." Velsha was quiet for a long time. Her flames grew a little brighter. feeding on Jake's body heat and maybe on his words too. "Your people fought mine for 20 years, she said finally. "We killed each other, burned your ships. You destroyed our colonies. Why do you sit here helping me? Why do you care if I live or die?" "Because war is over," Jake said simply. "Because you're a person who's hurting and I can help. Because maybe if you learn that showing weakness doesn't destroy you, you can teach others. And maybe that changes things between our people. One princess learning a lesson will not change an empire." "Maybe not," Jake admitted. "But it's a start. And every big change starts with one person choosing to do something different." Velshaw's flames were noticeably brighter now, a steady orange glow instead of the dim flicker from before. She was still weak, still exhausted, but no longer dying. Jake could feel her breathing deepen, become steadier. "What if I am afraid?" she asked quietly. "Then you're afraid. Fear doesn't make you weak. Pretending you're never afraid, that makes you brittle. Brittle things break." "I have so much fear," Velsha admitted. And Jake could hear tears in her voice even though Parathi couldn't cry. Their bodies were too hot for tears. "Fear that I will fail my mother. Fear that I am not good enough. Fear that all I am is fire and fire can only destroy." "Fire also gives warmth," Jake said. "Fire lights the darkness. Fire helps things grow. It's not just about destruction." They sat together in the cool darkness of the old human quarters. Jake knew he should activate his communicator, call for help, let everyone know the princess was found. But he also knew that this moment mattered. This conversation, this quiet sharing of fear and hope, was important in a way he couldn't quite explain. "I do not want to die," Velsha finally said. "I want to be strong. Truly strong the way you describe. Not the brittle strength of fire that cannot bend. The real strength of someone who can fall and rise again." "Then let's get you back," Jake said. "Let's face this together." "They will judge me." "Probably," Jake agreed. "But I'll stand with you. And I'll tell them what I told you. That real courage isn't about never being afraid. It's about being afraid and choosing to keep going anyway." Velsha managed a small laugh and her flames brightened more. "You are very brave, human Jake, to speak such words to a Parathi queen. You may be burned for your boldness, maybe," Jake said. "But some things are worth burning for." He reached for his communicator. Before he could activate it, Velshaw's hand, still weak but warming, caught his wrist. "Thank you," she said, "for seeing me. Not the princess, not the burning storm, not the perfect warrior. Just me." "You're welcome," Jake said. Then he pressed the communicator and spoke into it. "This is Jake Morrison. I found Princess Velshaw. She's safe. We're in the old human quarters in the eastern wing. Send help, but send it carefully. She's recovering, but she's still weak." Captain Grant's voice came back immediately. "Understood. Jake, is she hurt? Was she taken?" Jake looked at Velshaw. She nodded slightly, giving him permission to tell the truth. "She wasn't taken," Jake said. "She left on her own, and she's ready to come back." Within minutes he could hear footsteps and voices. The Royal Guard was coming. Queen Ashkara was coming. Everything was about to change. The door burst open with enough force to crack the old frame. Light flooded the room, and with it came heat. Queen Ashkara entered first, her flames burning so bright that Jake had to look away. Behind her came Cormal and a dozen royal guards, all with weapons drawn and fire burning hot around their hands. Jake slowly stood up, keeping himself between the guards and Velshaw. The princess was stronger now, her flames restored to a healthy glow, but she was still tired. She needed time to fully recover. "Step away from my daughter, Cold One," the queen commanded. Her voice was terrible with rage and fear mixed together. "Your Majesty," Jake said, not moving. "She's safe. She's not hurt." I said, "Step away." The queen's flames flared hotter. "Mother." Velshaw's voice was weak but clear. "He saved my life. If he had not found me, I would be dead." The queen's flames flickered with confusion. She looked past Jake to her daughter. "What do you mean?" Velsha slowly stood up, using the stone bench for support. Jake moved to help her, but she waved him off gently. She needed to stand on her own for this. "I ran away," Velsha said. Each word seemed to cost her effort. "I burned too hot for too long. I was tired. I came here to rest, to be cool, and my flames died down too much. This human found me dying a flame death and kept me warm until I recovered." The queen stared at her daughter. Around them, the royal guard shifted uncomfortably. Cormal's flames burned with confusion and something that might have been shame. A Parathi princess running away was unthinkable. A Parathi princess admitting weakness was even worse. You ran? Queen Ashkara's voice was quiet now, which was somehow more frightening than when she shouted. You abandoned your duties? You hid like a coward while we searched for you, while I thought you were taken or dead. I am sorry, mother, Belshaw said. I was not brave. I was weak and afraid, and I ran. The queen moved forward. Jake tensed, ready to step between them if needed, but Captain Grant's voice stopped him. Let them speak, Grant said quietly from the doorway. This is between them. Queen Ashkara stood before her daughter. The heat from her flames made the air shimmer. For a long moment neither spoke. Then the queen raised her hand and everyone in the room expected her to strike. Instead, she touched her daughter's face gently. You were weak and afraid, the queen repeated, and you admitted it. Do you know what that makes you? Belshaw looked confused. Disgraced? Brave, the queen said, and her flames dimmed slightly. I have ruled for 30 years, and in all that time no Parathi of noble blood has ever spoken such words aloud. We hide our fears. We burn bright to cover our pain. We break inside while showing strength outside. She looked at Jake. What did you say to my daughter? Jake swallowed. Every guard in the room was watching him. One wrong word could mean death. But Belshaw had been brave enough to tell the truth. He could do no less. I told her that strength isn't about never falling. It's about getting back up. I told her that admitting fear doesn't make you weak. It makes you honest. And honesty is the foundation of real courage. Bold words, the queen said. To speak so to a queen and her daughter. True words, your majesty, Jake said. If I may speak further? You may. Jake took a breath. I've been watching your people since I arrived. You're strong, powerful. Your warriors are fierce and your civilization has stood for thousands of years. But you're also stuck. You haven't changed or grown in centuries. Do you know why? Cormel stepped forward. You dare to insult us? Let him speak, the queen commanded. Jake continued. You're stuck because no one is allowed to question anything. No one can admit doubt or fear. No one can suggest a new way because that would mean admitting the old way might not be perfect. So you stay the same, burning bright but going nowhere. And your people are different? The queen asked. We are now, Jake said. We weren't always. But we learned. We learned that our greatest advances came when we admitted we were wrong about something. When we said we don't know and searched for answers. When we allowed ourselves to be vulnerable and learned from our mistakes. He gestured to Belshaw. Your daughter didn't fail by running away. She succeeded by admitting she needed help. She succeeded by being honest about her limits. That's not weakness, your majesty. That's wisdom. And if she can teach that to others, if you can support her in teaching it, your entire empire could benefit. The room was silent except for the crackle of flames. Queen Ashkara's expression was unreadable. Then slowly her flames changed color. They went from bright orange to a softer, almost blue tone. It was a color Jake had never seen in Parathi fire before. When I was young, the queen said, I had a sister. She was fierce and bright, even more so than Belshaw. She burned hotter than anyone in the royal family. Everyone said she would be a great queen someday. The queen paused and her flames dimmed further. She burned so hot that she destroyed herself. Flame death took her at 17. I became queen because my sister refused to admit she was tired. Belshaw gasped softly. You never told me. I never told anyone, the queen said. It is not our way to speak of such things, but perhaps our way is wrong. She turned to address the guards. Leave us. All of you. The guards hesitated, but no one disobeyed a direct order from the queen. They filed out slowly. Cormel was the last to leave, and he gave Jake a long look before departing. Jake couldn't read the expression on the Parathi's face. When they were alone, the queen sat on one of the old human benches. She gestured for Belshaw and Jake to sit as well. If my daughter had not run, the queen said quietly, if she had continued to burn as bright as she was burning, she would have died like my sister. The human is right. By admitting weakness, she showed strength. By running away, she saved her own life. She looked at Jake. And you, cold one, you risked much to help her. It was the right thing to do, Jake said simply. In our culture, when someone saves a member of the royal family, they are owed a debt. What would you ask of me? Jake thought carefully before answering. I would ask you to listen. Not just to me, but to your daughter. She has something important to say and your people need to hear it. The queen looked at Belshaw. What would you say? Belshaw's flames grew brighter with determination. I would say that we have been burning ourselves out for generations. I would say that we need to learn from the humans that showing emotion and admitting weakness does not diminish us. I would say that we can be fierce warriors and still acknowledge when we are tired or afraid or need help. Many will call this weakness, the Queen warned. Let them, Velsha said. I will prove them wrong. I will show them that accepting vulnerability makes us stronger, not weaker. I will be the example if you will allow it, Mother. Queen Ashkara was quiet for a long moment. Then she stood and placed both hands on her daughter's shoulders. You will have your chance. But know this, the path you choose will not be easy. You will face resistance. Many will mock you. Some may even challenge you. I know, Velsha said. But Jake will help me. Won't you? Jake found himself nodding before he fully thought about what he was agreeing to. I will. Then we have much work to do, the Queen said. She looked at Jake with new respect in her burning eyes. You are a strange one, Jake Morrison. You sit in darkness with a dying princess and speak bold truths to a queen. Perhaps peace between our peoples is possible after all. I believe it is, Your Majesty. The Queen moved toward the door, then paused. My daughter will need a guard, someone she trusts while she undertakes this task. Someone who understands both Parathi and human ways. Would you accept this duty? Jake looked at Velsha. She was watching him with hope in her eyes. He thought about the risks, about staying in this hot, dangerous place, about challenging an entire culture's way of thinking. Then he thought about what could be gained, not just peace between two civilizations, but real understanding. I accept, Jake said. The Queen nodded. Good, then let us return to the palace. There is much to discuss, and I must call a council. It is time for the Parathi Empire to hear some uncomfortable truths. As they walked back through the corridors, Velsha stayed close to Jake. Her flames were bright and steady now, but different somehow. Less aggressive, more balanced. Are you afraid? She asked him quietly. Terrified, Jake admitted. Good, she said, and her flames flickered with what might have been amusement. Then we are being honest. That is a good start. Behind them, the old human quarters stood empty once more, but they had served their purpose. They had been a place of refuge, a place where fire learned it could rest without dying, where weakness had become strength, and where two different peoples had taken the first real step toward understanding each other. The council chamber was filled with the most powerful Parathi in the empire. War leaders, advisors, nobles, and religious figures all gathered as Queen Ashkara called them to order. Their flames burned bright with curiosity and suspicion. Jake stood beside Velsha at the edge of the chamber, trying not to show how nervous he was. The human delegation sat in a special section built to be slightly cooler. Captain Grant watched everything carefully, ready to intervene if things went wrong. The other human diplomats looked worried. This was not how peace talks usually went. Queen Ashkara stood before her throne and spoke. Her voice carried through the chamber, commanding attention. I have called you here because my daughter has something to say, something that will challenge everything we believe about strength and honor. Murmurs rippled through the assembled Parathi. A war leader named Braktor stood up. His flames burned angry red. Why should the princess address the council? She is young and has not proven herself in battle. She has proven herself in a different way, the Queen said. She has shown courage that none of us have shown. She has been honest about her weaknesses. This caused an uproar. Flames flared throughout the chamber as Parathi shouted and argued. Weakness was the greatest shame in their culture. To speak of it openly was unthinkable. The Queen raised her hand and slowly the chamber quieted. Let her speak. If you disagree, challenge her words with logic, not just anger. Velsha stepped forward. Jake could see her flames flickering with nerves, but she kept them under control. She had practiced what she would say, but standing before the entire council was different than practicing in private. I ran away from the palace 3 days ago, Velsha began. Her voice shook slightly, but she continued. I ran because I was burning myself out trying to be perfect. I pushed my flames too hot for too long, and I was dying inside. I felt trapped and afraid, but I could not admit it because I was taught that admitting fear was shameful. Shame indeed, Braktor called out. A warrior princess running like a frightened child. Yes, Velsha said, surprising everyone. It was shameful. I was afraid. But do you know what took more courage? Coming back. Standing here, telling all of you the truth. This is harder than any battle I have fought in training. Another council member stood. Her name was Zara, and she was an old warrior with many scars. What is your point, princess? That we should all run away when things are hard? That we should whine and complain instead of being strong? My point, Velsha said, her flames burning brighter now with passion, is that we are killing ourselves by pretending to be perfect. We burn out our warriors. We destroy our young people by demanding they show no weakness. We have not grown or changed as an empire in centuries because no one dares to suggest new ideas or admit they do not know something. Jake watched the faces of the council members. Some looked angry, but others looked thoughtful. He caught Kormal's eye. The guard captain was watching Velsha with an expression Jake couldn't quite read. Velsha continued. The humans have something to teach us. They learned that acknowledging weakness does not make you weak. It makes you wise. They learned that asking for help is not failure. It is intelligence. They learned that their greatest strength comes from being honest about their limits and working together to overcome them. The cold ones? Braktor laughed. You want us to learn from the cold ones? They are weak. They cannot survive in our heat. They cannot create fire. What can they possibly teach us? Jake stepped forward before he could think better of it. May I speak? The queen nodded. You may. Jake walked to stand beside Velsha. Every eye in the chamber was on him. You're right, he said to Braktor. We can't survive your heat without cooling suits. We can't create fire from our bodies. In those ways, we are weaker than you. But do you know what makes us strong? Nothing, Braktor said with contempt. We know we're weak, Jake said. We know our limits. So we build technology to help us. We work together because we know one person alone cannot do everything. We admit when we're wrong and learn from our mistakes. That's how we went from living in caves to traveling between stars. Not by being perfect, but by being honest about our imperfections and figuring out how to overcome them. He turned to address the entire council. You call us cold ones, and you're right. We are cold compared to you, but we're also still here. We survived a war against your empire because we adapted. We changed our tactics when the old ones failed. We learned from our defeats. Can you say the same? Several council members shifted uncomfortably. The Parathi had won many battles in the war, but they had also lost many. And their tactics had barely changed throughout the entire conflict. Zara, the old warrior, stood again. You speak bold words, human, but words are easy. Show me proof. Show me how this weakness makes you strong. Jake thought for a moment. Then he said, I'm terrified right now. Standing here speaking to all of you, I am more afraid than I have ever been in my life. My heart is racing. My hands want to shake. But I'm still standing here. I'm still speaking. That's strength. Not pretending I'm not afraid, but acting despite my fear. He looked at Velsha. Your princess did the same thing. She admitted she was struggling. She sought help. She came back even though she knew she would be judged. That takes more courage than any battle. Queen Ashikara spoke up. I lost my sister because she burned too bright and refused to admit she was tired. I watched her destroy herself because our culture told her that admitting weakness was shameful. I will not lose my daughter the same way. The human is right. It is time for us to change. Braktor's flames flared. You would abandon our traditions? Our honor, I would save our people, the queen replied. Our traditions are killing us. Our honor has become a cage. We can be fierce warriors and still acknowledge when we need rest. We can be proud and still admit when we are wrong. These things are not contradictions. They are wisdom. The debate went on for hours. Some council members supported Velsha and the queen. Others argued loudly against any change. But Jake noticed something important. Even the ones who disagreed were talking about it. They were questioning. They were thinking. That was already a change. Finally, the queen called for a vote. I propose that we begin a cultural exchange program with the humans. Young Parathi will train with them, and young humans will train with us. We will learn from each other. All in favor. It was not unanimous, but it was enough. More than half the council voted yes. In the weeks that followed, everything changed. Velsha became the first Parathi to officially join the exchange program. Jake was assigned as her liaison and guard. They worked together, teaching and learning from each other. The princess learned that humans had many ways of being strong. They had emotional strength, intellectual strength, the strength to admit mistakes and start over. Jake learned that Parathi fire was not just about destruction. It was about passion, about clarity, about burning away what was false to reveal what was true. Captain Grant and Queen Ashkara finished their peace negotiations. The treaty they signed was stronger than anyone had hoped. It included provisions for trade, for shared military defense, for cultural exchange. For the first time in 20 years, humans and Parathi were not enemies. Not everyone was happy about the changes. Some Parathi still viewed humans as weak. Some humans still feared the Parathi. But more and more young people from both species began to understand each other. 6 months after the princess's disappearance, Jake stood in the palace gardens. He was preparing to return to Earth. His assignment was complete. The exchange program was established and running well. Velsha had other teachers now, other humans and Parathi who believed in the new way. The princess found him there, watching the alien sunset. Her flames burned steady and bright but controlled. She had learned balance. "You're leaving," she said. "It wasn't a question. My orders came through," Jake confirmed. "I'm needed back home. They want me to help train the next group of exchange officers. I will miss you," Velsha said simply. "You saved my life, not just in those old quarters, but in every day since. You showed me a different way to be strong. You did that yourself," Jake said. "I just pointed the way. You had the courage to walk it." Velsha reached into her robes and pulled out something that glowed. It was a crystal, but not like the ones that made up the Parathi buildings. This one was special, smaller, more personal. Inside it, a flame burned, bright and eternal. "This is a piece of my fire," she explained. "A gift given only to those who have earned our deepest respect. It will burn forever, never dimming, never going out. Carry it with you, Jake Morrison, and remember that fire can be warm as well as fierce." Jake took the crystal carefully. It was hot but not burning, warm like holding a hand. "I will treasure it. Will you come back?" Velsha asked. "Someday I hope so," Jake said honestly. "I'd like to see how things turn out, how you change your world." "We changed it together," Velsha corrected. "Two people from different worlds, honest about their fears, willing to be vulnerable. That was enough to start something bigger than both of us." Jake smiled. "Maybe that's the real lesson. Change doesn't require perfection. It just requires courage. The courage to be honest, to be vulnerable, to admit when something isn't working and try something new. Then I will continue to be courageous," Velsha said. Her flames brightened. "Even when it is diffy."